FM News Talk 97.1.
On-demand audio. Talk lines are open now at 314-969-9797 or toll free at 866-455-9797. You're listening to The Dana Show.
Folks, I tell you, one of the funniest things that I have seen in the past year in politics is the left trying to categorize, in the past 2 years since the birth of the new Tea Party movement, is the left trying to categorize these very calm, these smart college students, these little old ladies with their lawn chairs, their coolers of high C, all of that when they go to the Tea Party rallies, as this angry, disjointed, ground and pound kind of mob, when it's so far from the truth. And there's a new book out by one of my favorite people in politics. The book is Demonic: How the Liberal Mob is Endangering America. And the author, Ann Coulter, joins us on the phone right now. Ann, good afternoon. Thanks for joining me.
Great to talk to you.
It's good to have you. This book is, well, I love how it's just all black, red, demonic. It's fantastic. It's a really unique take because you've with your books, there's a theme. You always look at the definition and the recognition of what liberals are, what liberalism is. And this one takes a look at a very important tactic. And I think it still goes along with the aesthetic of your books, but it's a different approach because I haven't seen it on the bookshelves looking at this tactic. Why did you choose to write this book?
Well, I spend a lot of time around liberals, so I had always sort of suspected they had a mob mentality in as much as they were often physically attacking me. And then just watching them on TV, engaging in their sloganeering and repetition, it just seemed very mob-like. And so I started buying books on mob psychology and groupthink, riots, financial panics, all that sort of thing.
Right.
And, you know, a lot of the books sort of hit on the points in a tertiary way, but weren't directly on until I got to the father of groupthink, Gustave Le Bon, who wrote about, who first noticed that people behave differently when in the midst of a crowd, even a psychological crowd, and defined groupthink, basically. And as you read through, it's just point after point. Oh, that's liberals. That's liberals. Yes, that's liberals. And it's the way modern liberals behave in a way that is noticeable and distinct from the way conservatives behave. I mean, both political parties, there are some things that will be similar. We'll tend to give our own side the benefit of the doubt. We'll tend to be tougher on the other side. But these are characteristics that are very distinctive to the liberals, including what you mentioned, their actual physical violence. And I know it was driving you crazy actually being at these peaceful tea parties with, them leaving with the parks and the malls cleaner than when they showed up. It was particularly enraging to me going through 100 years of liberal mob violence in this country that they have the audacity to turn around and describe conservatives as a mob. It's exactly how they did a complete about-face on civil rights. It was Democrats who, of course, were the party of slavery and segregation. It was Democrats fighting against civil rights bills, anti-lynching bills, anti-poll tax bills for 100 years in Washington. And then only when blacks start to vote in large enough numbers to make a difference to Democrats' electoral prospects, they turn on a dime, completely reverse the history of civil rights in America, and claim Republicans were the obstructionists. It's exactly the opposite of the truth, which I believe is the official New York Times motto.
Liberals, one of the things that you discuss in this book is you really go back and make an educated distinction between like the founding of this country and, I mean, you go way back, all the way back like to the French Revolution. You mentioned Gustave Le Bon, and you discuss how this is so different because a lot of liberals like to say that it's, this country was founded by like mob behavior and mob techniques, but you disagree and you cite history. Can you give us a little bit of historical perspective?
Yes, a lot of historical parallels don't make much sense, but I think one that does is that I think you can trace the beginning of liberalism and the beginning of conservatism to the French and American revolutions. The French Revolution was a a viciously, barbarically anti-religious mob. Much of it consisted of desecrating cathedrals, turning monasteries into rubble. In fact, the word vandalism had to be created to describe the destruction of the French Revolution. It was a mob revolt. There was no clear purpose to it. There would be rumors, the aristocracy is going to attack, there was a military defeat, we're out of bread, and the mob runs out and starts hacking priests to death. By contrast, the American Revolution was a revolution of Englishmen and Christians who were thinking and talking and debating whether they should separate from England. They were constantly chattering about their revolution and the purposes and the cause and putting it out there for people to critique and debate. You really don't have much literature coming out of the French Revolution because they were too busy, smashing the stained glass windows of Notre Dame Cathedral. And you see the French Revolution, which was unsuccessful, by the way, after 4 years of this madness and constant guillotinings of fellow Frenchmen, merely for example, if young girls were overheard to remark that they thought the guillotinings were getting out of hand, wow, they would be guillotined. So after 4 years of this madness, the French people throw themselves into the arms of a dictator, Napoleon. Then they get another monarchy. Then they get another dictator, and then another monarchy, and 80 years later they get something vaguely sort of resembling a republic, whereas our revolution actually did achieve a republic, a democracy, unprecedented freedom and prosperity. All of our founding fathers died in their sleep, except one obscure one who died in a duel over something having nothing to do with the revolution. All of the French revolutionaries or French Revolution leaders died under the guillotine 4 years later. But which revolution gets copied around the world? The French Revolution, the unsuccessful one. In Russia, in China, in Vietnam, in Cambodia, in Cuba and Venezuela, because I guess if you are the leader of the mob, it's more fun to be part of a mob revolt than to be one of many citizens equal before the law.
Right. What you hit on a couple of things too, very important that in this book about liberalism being a psychological mob. They love slogans. They like the T-shirts with the cute little icons and graphic images. And you had Shepard Fairey with the Hope poster and all of this. And you discussed how conservatives don't get into that singular slogan making kind of marketing. Is it just because we're headstrong and we just don't want to be bossed around?
There's definitely some of that. I think that's part of why conservatives are uniquely immune to groupthink. But yeah, the sloganeering, it's part of the crowd psychology includes simple-mindedness and childlike behavior and inability to grasp logic and complicated concepts. I mean, it's been sort of a long-standing I don't know if it's exactly a complaint, but sort of a complaint about conservatives. Liberals are out there screaming tax the rich, and we have our representatives standing with the flow chart and the pointer and trying to explain, but Medicare is about to go bankrupt. And you have the Tea Partiers today, reading the Constitution and trying to hold politicians' feet to the fire on the Constitution, not running around babbling, yes, we can.
Right. So how do conservatives, is there any particular way that they can diffuse this sort of mob psychology, this mob mentality in order to, because I know it's going to take a lot to have equal footing with Battle of the Messages, because you were just highlighting one of the problems now. What do you do with this? How do you battle it?
Part of what I think the advantage of my book is when you read through it, I mean, I noticed this just when I was writing the book, and having studied Le Bon, suddenly every liberal I see talking on TV, I just start laughing, thinking, oh yeah, that's groupthink, that's the sloganeering, that's the repetition, that's the inability to grasp complicated concepts. And I think by reading what groupthink consists of, you can sort of inoculate yourself from it and inoculate other people from it by pointing it out to them. And then secondarily, it is possible for conservatives to put across a point that is logical, that isn't slogan-based, that isn't just an image, in simple terms. In fact, images, I suppose, could be used, but still based on logic. I mean, the weird thing about liberal slogans is if you have 10 seconds to reflect on what they've just said, you realize it makes no sense.
Right.
What does "you can't hug a child with nuclear arms" mean? What does that mean?
Very non sequitur. Last question I have for you. I know you have a busy schedule. Looking ahead, and this is a little off topic, looking ahead, 2012, it's not really that far ahead. If Chris Christie does not jump into this race, is there anyone who comes close to being as attractive to you politically as he does?
Well, if it's not Chris Christie, I think it's going to be Romney, which isn't necessarily a statement of preference, but I don't think he's so bad. I mean, one thing that struck me watching the Republican debate Monday night, and also we'll see who he takes as his vice president, and there is the Tea Party movement to keep all these politicians in line or more in line than they would be otherwise. But watching Monday night's debate, I just kept thinking everyone on that stage is better than John McCain.
Oh, yes. Amen to that. Everybody is. Ann Coulter, author of Demonic, How the Liberal Mob is Endangering America. You can get it at Amazon, wherever books are sold. Ann, it's a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining me.
Great to talk to you, Dana. Bye-bye.
All right, take care. Your call's on the way, 866-455-9797. We have Today in Stupidity. A lot more on The Dana Show. Keep it here.
I've made a few. I've had my share.